Pokemon is the largest media franchise of all time, and while that does mean you can talk about Blacephalon to start a conversation with a stranger, there is one Pokemon that you would be correct if you made a snarky comment that, "Your mom knows this Pokemon," which, by the way, would help me in the YouTube algorithm. So let's talk some Pikachu, shall we? Pikachu is the OG, the GOAT, the face of the entire series since Red and Blue, and the only Pokemon that pulled the rare, hyper-competitive strategy of aiming at the horn. But did Pikachu have as much of a claim to fame in the actual Red and Blue games as it did in the hearts of the fan base? This is what we are going to find out. In Red and Blue, you can catch a Pikachu as soon as Viridian Forest, and if you do, you might be like, wow, a Gen 1 non-normal Pokemon that starts with Stab and has Thunder Wave and Growl? What kind of sorcery is this? And you might think you just found the Arceus of Gen 1. That is, until you fight Brock. Pikachu is, for most intents and purposes, useless against Brock without its signature aim for the horn. You technically can growl and quick attack, but that is how far you can get. Quite a bad start, but let's not treat Pikachu so harshly for losing to a bad type matchup. The next major split in the Gen 1 games is Cerulean City, home to gym leader Misty, but also to the second mandatory rival fight, and Pikachu is quite decent there. It can deal with Pidgeotto, which is arguably the strongest Pokemon that rival has at that point, and is not a sitting duck against anything else, thanks to its aforementioned move pool. Even better, Pikachu is an electric type, which is super effective against Misty, which sounds great until you realize how trash Pikachu's stats are. Now granted, Pikachu can beat Staryu one-on-one consistently, but come Starmie, unless you are lucky with Misty's AI, Bubble Beam is a 2-hit KO, and a 1-hit KO with a crit, which by the way, is quite likely due to how Gen 1's crits work. Even in this favorable matchup, Pikachu is quite far from the best option for the second gym fight, as Pokemon like Ivysaur, Gloom, and Gyarados will most likely do a lot more than the game's mascot, and are likely to solo the entire gym by themselves. After failing to impress this girl who was weak to him to begin with, this non-fully evolved mascot starts quite a bad arc of its existence, failing to do much on Lieutenant Surge, except maybe kill one of his weaker Pokemon or die in exchange for a paralysis on the Raichu. It then gets utterly wrecked by every single hiker in Rock Tunnel, who obviously uses rock and ground types, and after that though, Pikachu suddenly becomes way better. The player accesses a Thunderstone to evolve him into Raichu. Raichu is decent in terms of stats, and though it gets literally no moves, the only moves it wanted to begin with is Thunderbolt, which you do get by TM. Now of course, Erica is even less impressed with our red colored friend, and Giovanni kind of rubs it in further by being like, yo, here is a Rhyhorn. It has a horn! Can you aim at it? Raichu can still be not totally useless by dealing with the Kangaskhan. In Pokemon Tower, Raichu has a strong move in Thunderbolt. Again, if you are willing to use the TM to hit the ghost types. On a side note, Raichu has a niche against all of the rival fights, which always has a Pidgey evolution and a water type. Now, once you get the Pokeflute, you can go to Fuchsia, and that means good news to Raichu. If you choose to go through routes 13, 14, and 15, you will find many bird keepers that finally give Raichu some time to shine. If you choose to do Cycling Road route instead, there's still room for Raichu to shine against the poison type teams that populate this route, given that their poor special stat is abounding. Oh, and speaking of that, Raichu is actually very good against 5th gym leader Koga, which uses 4 low special Pokemon. Raichu can get 2 or 3 kills consistently and has a good chance to solo the fight, especially given its massive crit rate. The way Raichu would most likely faint is to be hacked by accuracy reduction, or to Weezing's blow up, though at this point you would already have won since Weezing is always Koga's last Pokemon. Raichu remains decent in the Sabrina Blaine split, and while their Pokemon are not particularly awful, the mix of Raichu's good stats and the bad AI of the game will make the evolved mascot kill 2 or even more Mons before fainting. But then, a total catastrophe happens when Raichu runs into Giovanni's ground types, which it can't really touch outside of normal coverage, which is not ideal. However, here in the Elite Four, Raichu finally finds the first member that he can conquer by easily beating any Pokemon on her team, not named Jinx. Apart from that, Raichu will most likely beat 1 or 2 Pokemon against Bruno or Agatha, even though Bruno's Onix walls it. This all depends on what their random AI has to offer, but Raichu will then offer a clean one-hit KO on Lance's Gyarados, but not much more against Lance, who will prove to be one tough matchup. Also, Raichu will have at least 2 targets in the champion fight, namely Pidgeot and Gyarados or Blastoise, though it is relatively bad against most other Pokemon, especially Rhydon, the Horn, and Executor, and can maybe trade with Arcanine. Overall, Raichu's spot in the Elite Four Gauntlet is more than justified for what it can bring to its team. So taking a look back, Red and Blue's Raichu is far from the worst thing of all time. It has a number of decent to good matchups, but virtually no excellent ones outside of Lorelei. And a bigger problem we are yet to mention is that if you want to have a good electric type, you can use Jolteon, which has more special and more speed, and which will make it crit more often and make it better than Raichu for most intents purposes. But to be fair, Raichu is still better than the other electric types in the game, like Magneton, Electrode, Electabuzz, and then let's not forget Pikachu. Pikachu came back even more hyped in Pokemon Yellow to literally own the game. Now, it learns Thunderbolt naturally at level 26 and has a slightly buffed up special stat, and is now more confident in its power, and it won't allow you to pick any other Pokemon as a starter. It won't even let you evolve it to Raichu. This iteration of Pikachu surely got what it takes, right? Well, unfortunately, this Pikachu is just slightly better than the one in the version of Red and Blue. It is again completely useless against Brock, just decent against Misty, and does not really do significantly better in any subsequent part of the game, other than allowing you to use TM Thunderbolt on something else. I mean, at which point anyone with more than 3 brain cells would probably just figure that any fully evolved electric type is way better than Pikachu anyway. So, how good was Pikachu? Like, was Pikachu good? Well, Raichu is overall decent in Red and Blue, but does not have enough memorable matchups outside of Lorelei and Misty, and it doesn't even beat properly. It definitely can be put on a team, but it's not the powerhouse that can just own 90% of the game by itself, which you would be surprised how many Pokemon actually can. Pikachu in Yellow, however, is hot garbage. There's just no reason to use outside of sheer obstination or trying to play Ash's team or something. Just use any other electric type, honestly. So, what do you think about Gen 1 Pikachu? Do you think Raichu is worth a team slot? Would you still use Yellow Pikachu despite its flaws? Do you have any idea how it's a mascot? I mean, how does it have a mascot status in Yellow, and does that reflect upon its in-game performance in an interesting way? And how does all of this stuff come into Nuzlocking? Feel free to tell us in the comments, and also if you like this kind of video, please leave a like, subscribe, and let me know. This is Poke Rebels. The rebellion has started. I will see y'all next time.